Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director, for your testimony, and I appreciate especially the Chairman's remarks about cooperating with the committee prior to this hearing. And I understand that you're in a difficult position in this job. I would note the irony that one side is angry when you enforce the law, the other side is angry when you don't enforce the law. And so I happen to be on the side of the latter. But I'm curious about a few things here, and one of them is I noticed in your written testimony that you have participated in high-level discussions with Mexican government officials discussing opportunities to more rapidly repatriate Mexican nationals. And then it goes on into the interesting part. I've also met with government officials from Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, where each pledged to do our part to stem the tide of citizens of those countries. Okay, I think we understand in this committee what all that means. And I'm curious on what you learned, because we have passed legislation here in the House, I think a couple of times, that would require those kind of negotiations to establish, I think I'll use the term, an expedited return for those unaccompanied alien juveniles to the non-contiguous countries that I've mentioned are in your testimony. Did you see a level of a cooperation there that, do you think it'd be possible to negotiate those terms of return for the unaccompanied alien juveniles to those countries?
Well, and actually, I think I mentioned in my written statement, if I didn't, I was remiss in overlooking it, that we have actually in Guatemala and in Honduras initiatives, pilot initiatives, in which we have representatives of those countries here in order to expedite removal of people from those countries.
Is there anything in statute that prohibits us from doing that right now if we can reach that agreement? We don't have to wait for Congress to tell you, do we?
I'm not waiting on it. We're discussing this, as I said. That's one of the things I did early on, was to go through those.
Well, whose decision would it be then? Could Director Johnson then issue a directive that we complete those negotiations and begin to return those unaccompanied alien juveniles to their home countries?
Well, we're actually doing that now. We're negotiating, we're talking, we're working hard with them.
Does he have the authority to issue such an order?
Legal authority, sir, I just haven't studied that question.
Okay. Then are you aware of an agreement between Guatemala and Mexico to provide for expedited transit for Guatemalans who are on their way to illegally enter the United States, and to grant in Mexico that 72-hour transit permit?
I believe there were discussions when I met with those countries in February to that effect, yes.
And I recall a press release from a press conference held between the President of Mexico and the President of Guatemala, who announced this agreement. And I recall the President of Mexico saying they hope to be able to complete such agreements also with El Salvador and Honduras. Has that come to your attention?
It has, yes.
Then I would ask then, how do we consider them to be cooperative countries if they're cooperating with each other to expedite the removal of their own citizens across through Mexico and illegally enter the United States?
Well, sir, actually, the Mexican authorities stopping Central Americans from coming benefits the United States greatly. I
agree with that, but if they're giving permits for Guatemalans to have 72 hours as long as they're in transit to McAllen, Texas, I don't call that cooperating with our policy. I call that contravening. So are they talking out of both sides of their mouths, or is there something I'm missing through the translation in the agreement?
I can't say that. I can't say that they're talking. What I saw in Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador were sincere efforts to try to help get their people back. The First Lady of Guatemala looked at me very closely and said, please, until we do, take care of our children. I took that to heart, because I think it was a sincere comment. And that's what we try to do.
We are taking care of their children. We're flying them from places like Guatemala City into the United States now, completing the human trafficking. I find it ironic that just a year and a half ago, it was December of 2013, when Judge Hainan wrote an opinion that there was a coyote who had smuggled a 10-year-old girl into the United States. They were interdicted. They prosecuted the coyote for human trafficking, and ICE delivered the 10-year-old girl to her birth mother in Virginia. And to quote from the opinion of Judge Hainan, thus completing the crime of human trafficking by ICE. Now we're doing it hundreds and thousands of times and buying plane tickets to do that. That's a bit breathtaking to me, and I think it's got to be very difficult to take an oath to uphold this Constitution and support the rule of law when you're watching above you it being subverted in the fashion that it is. And I'd give you an opportunity to correct me on my analysis.
Sir, we also have a humane approach to the law in the United States, unlike many countries. That's why I'm so proud to be a member of this country. And as part of that, if there's a situation, I'm not particularly familiar with this one that you're talking about, where a family is reunited who doesn't present a risk to public safety or a risk of flight, then I agree with that approach.
I'll just say our policy reunites them in their home country.
Gentleman's
Thank you, and
time
I
has
yield back.
expired.